weekends and sometimes on weeknights. Much of the treatment I received at Farmville was repeated at Hollowell's drugstore. Customers would come in and make it loud and clear that they did not want me to wait on them. Sometimes they would say it out loud, and sometimes they would just say, "I don't want your black hands on my food." I stayed at Hollowell's, and people finally got used to me being there, especially when I worked in the pharmacy handing out prescriptions. I've always said there's a difference in attitude when you are giving someone prescriptions, medicine, than when you're giving them an ice cream cone or a soda pop. As times never stand still, I finally was a senior at Farmville, set to graduate in the spring of 1968. At this time, more black students had enrolled, and my sister Vicki became a superstar basketball player on the girls' basketball varsity team. But in 1968, my world fell apart. Dr. Martin Luther King, our national civil rights leader, was assassinated on April 4th, 1968. Our nation had just mourned the deaths of John F. Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy. And the death of Martin Luther King Jr. brought untold sadness and grief to my heart, to my soul, to my spirit. The atmosphere of celebration about his death in the halls of Farmville High School by staff and by students and some staff. There seemed to be a celebratory atmosphere, and I was just stricken. Let me tell you, for the very first time as a student, I felt a rush of hatred toward my fellow students. I was hurt, I was furious, and I wanted to strike out. I just wanted to reach out and hit somebody or hit someone. All the feelings that I had suppressed for 3 years bubbled to the top of my very being. I felt both helpless and powerless, but I managed to calm myself down. After all, Dr. King's nonviolent stance was a rule that I lived my life by. I also had feelings of my own personal safety, and my well-being was in question. So taking a deep breath and attempting to hide my tears, I went to my senior English class, taught by the iconic and legendary teacher, Mr. Lewis Lawrence. I credit Mr. Lawrence's character and his great wisdom helping me out that day. Mr. Lawrence knew that the pen was mightier than the sword. So he simply gave us an assignment. He said, write what you are feeling today. And oh boy, I went to town. I wrote several pages expressing my outrage and concern about the assassination, about the unfairness for the treatments of blacks and other minorities in America. Words of silent heartache and despair poured out of me like a stream of moving water. And after I wrote this essay, I found some relief. I could slowly feel my fears dissipate. I thank Mr. Lawrence for giving us that activity because I think it saved me from doing something that I would later regret. And just as the weather changes in time, I finally proudly graduated from Farmville High School in 1968 in the class of 56 students. Our class motto was "Dare to be different." How ironic, I thought. I had spent 3 long years being different and treated differently. In spite of it all, I had reached my goal. I had successfully integrated and graduated from Farmville High School at the age of 17. After graduation, I went off to college, the very first in my family to do so. Later, I got married, had 3 lovely, talented daughters, and embarked on my career as an educator. I began my teaching career in 1974 in Charles County Public Schools as a 6th grade language arts and reading teacher at Milton M. Summers Middle School in La Plata, Maryland. During my career, I was fortunate to teach hundreds of school children, helping them to develop into lifelong learners and become responsible adults. The most outstanding moment in my career in education was in 2006. In 2006, I was named Charles County Teacher of the Year. That was a monumental achievement for me. It just stated of all the teachers in the system, elementary, middle, and high, I was selected as their Teacher of the Year. I received many awards, gifts, and statewide opportunities. I felt as if my journey that began in 1965 had been worth the effort and not been in vain. After 35 years of classroom teaching, I decided I was going to retire. But before I could even start to enjoy my retirement, I was called back into the workforce. I was then assigned the task of being the reading resource teacher for Charles County Middle School, Charles County Middle Schools. This supervisory position provided me with the opportunity to work with teachers rather than students. What an awesome way to use my classroom experience in curriculum writing and other things to guide others into this noble profession called teaching. Today, almost 60 years ago, I helped integrate Pitt County school system. And I know 2 things for sure. I know when I was born, and I know why I was born. I do believe that God had a plan for my life. Scripture says, I have a plan for you. Plans to prosper you and not harm you. To give you hope and a future. In my case, plans to pave the way for others who would come after me. Plans to advance the rights of unrepresented citizens. Plans to advance and accept different cultures, different people, and different religions as equals. Plans to be a trailblazer in spite of the challenges that presented themselves to me. You will probably never read my story in a history book, nor will there be a book written about me like Ruby Bridges or Medgar Evers and others. I certainly will not receive a Lifetime Achievement Award, but what you might see, if you care to notice, is diversity of our country and our world, what it has become in contrast to what it was. Sometimes a small step taken by brave, courageous, everyday folks can lead to big changes. Sometimes little, not so well-known people of small places can bring about big changes. As I say in my church at home, let us go in peace.